Okay, so I'm trying something new. I've wanted to record some of my projects and stuff for a while, so I decided to. I'm snowed in today, so I decided to make a Connecticut State Trooper car out of this Matchbox Taurus cop car. So maybe I'll see how this video does, and maybe I'll make more of these. But so obviously, first I gotta drill this out. Hopefully this bit's the right size. I'm going to slow that down a bit. Okay, so off camera I used a drill press to drill out the rivets because I didn't have the right size drill and the Dremel was so fast it didn't really cut, whereas the drill press did it perfectly in seconds. So now I have that off. The interior I'm not really going to do anything about. It is kind of cool, it's got the little computer and stuff in it. No like partition though. So, first off, these windows, the only thing I'm going to do to them is I need to paint this part that sticks out silver. Put that off to the side. I got to switch these wheels out. I can just get some flush cutters on those. But firstly, I got to get these decals off. I'll use a little bit of acetone. And that just wipes right off. And then I'd like to save the tail lights, so I'm not going to wipe too close to that. And I'd like to save that little bit of headlight, and I'll just add to it if I can. I'll make sure to get in all the little nooks and crannies there. Maybe try and get in there with a toothpick. And then just repeat on the other side. So it's about as clean as that's going to get. Get a toothpick. The replacement wheels go away. Cleans up all the panel lines. There's no decal residue in there, without scratching the paint up too much, because unfortunately my spray booth is not set up yet, so I'm not equipped to fully repaint the car at this time. Cotton swab for a little more control than the cotton bud. Got into the headlight a little bit, but that's okay. I was going to touch that up with some white paint probably. Because this car's already silver, so doing a silver headlight wouldn't show up very well. And I'll get the other side, because this is clogged up, because you want to change your Q-tip regularly, or at least the side of your Q-tip if you're using dual-sided. Otherwise they get clogged up and they just smear the decal material instead of taking it with it. Especially on large decals. And I had to drill the car first before doing this because the acetone will actually damage the wheels if you are trying to save the wheels, and it can damage the clear parts if you're not careful, so it's better to do it after you've drilled the car. Okay, then I just have to take this Matchbox police writing off of here without disturbing the Ford logo, hopefully. That's clogged. I have these other old Q-tips that are a little longer. That might be good for this. Don't know, we'll find out. These work fine. There we go, now that is nice and bare. I just need to touch up around the light with the toothpick to get what I couldn't get out with the acetone. Sometimes it also helps to dip the edge of the Q-tip in acetone when the decal is on the thicker side. Or, yeah, edge of the toothpick, not Q-tip. So unfortunately the decals on this were bright orange, so they show up very starkly in the panel gaps. I'm going to call that pretty good. And this side. Okay, I'll call that good. So, well, the body is prepped. I'll never be able to replicate the little Ford logo on the front, but I can at least paint a little bit of blue there. I have some enamel silver. I have some Molotow liquid chrome. That's the littlest one. I need the bigger one. Let's see what'll work better on making this light bar silver, because I'm going for a lights off look. This one should work. Yeah, this will work great. It's a little less messy than the paint. I really like these markers. I wish I could find regular paint like this, but as far as I'm aware, it doesn't seem to exist. It would be great for little touch-ups and stuff on details on models, but this is not going to be a perfect replica, but it'll be pretty close for a quick job. So just a little fun project. Only thing is this sometimes it's a little tricky to see exactly how even it is with how shiny it is. And while I have this out, there's these little tiny lights right here. Maybe I'll use the smaller one for those. Technically, this isn't the correct light bar for a Connecticut State Trooper, but I'm working with what's here. My hands were a little steadier, that would be much easier, but and at this scale there really isn't much I can do about the interior. Now, let's see if I have adequate tools for moving the axle down here. I do have an X-Acto knife, I don't have to work. I buy all these pairs of flush cut pliers and I never know where they go. I'm just gonna try. Let's see if I can work the axle out a little. I'd ideally like it to be able to hold in by itself, but I can always glue it in. There we go. There's one. And that can go in my pile of wheels. If I ever want to do a mainline wheel swap with some Matchbox wheels. And then the mainline wheels that I have for this, I picked these Hot Wheels 5 spokes, just generic mainline. And because they're pretty similar to the hubcaps a lot of them use. And if I black out the chrome, they're also pretty similar to the steelies that these cars have. So I could really go either direction with it. But the axle might be a little bit too wide. I may have to cut that and glue it in the middle maybe. Or use one of my custom axle pieces. Okay, and off those go. Now we get to see if these are the same diameter. Okay. I'm definitely going to have to cut these down, I think. There we go. That popped in. Center up those axles. See how that looks on the car. And the wheels have some play in it. And the axle being too big. But it's also not like horrific if I center it up a bit. I might just leave it for now. I could always find a narrower set of axles, because these are a pretty common wheel. It actually looks quite good, in my opinion. So let's put that away, and that away. Now the fun part, a little bit of paint. I did some looking beforehand for reference images, so I have an idea of what's supposed to be what color. Gloss white, I can use that for the headlights. I just need some, but I had some gloss black in here. There we go, gloss black, gloss white. And these enamels are very old, but they do still work if I stir them up. So I actually have a piece of styrene that I cut as my tiny paint stirrer stick. And then I also need a little tiny bit of blue for the Ford logo. I have this old Tester's dark blue, so maybe that'll work good. Because I only need a tiny little bit, and that'll be after the black and white are painted on. I may also take some silver and paint the exhaust on here. And I did actually leave just enough of a burr on this back post that this seems to, as I eat my words, it seemed to kind of click into it, so I may just glue the car back together. A lot of people drill and tap these posts, but I don't have the correct screws or the correct drills. It's taken me, it took me about as long to drill these posts out, or I should say to find all the stuff to drill them out, as it's did to build the rest of this right now. That should work. So we'll take this gloss black, give it a shake, give it a crack it open. I think part of the reason these have lasted so long too, these paints are well over 10 years old, is that they reseal pretty much every time you close them with dried paint, so it makes a nice airtight seal. I just have to stir this up a bit. I should have gotten a rag. Proper planning is key in these videos. Okay. And I have a rag. Okay, it's wiping off clean. Let's take a little bit of this. A little too much on that. Very carefully paint in the grill. Should do that. Ideally, I'd use airbrush for more of this, and it'd probably look much better. But like I said at the beginning of the video, or earlier in the video, I should say, that isn't hooked up yet. Just kind of cleaning up the edges so it looks less messy, because it drives me nuts when people leave the little tiny brush strokes that went out of the area. Okay, so this is all done. needs a good stir. Looks like glue. Oh, I forgot I needed to paint the side mirrors, and there's a little trim panel in the back that need to be black, but I can hit those quick. That looks pretty good. Wipe this brush off a little. Wipe this brush off. Get this in a little bit of... This is my designated cleaning thinner jar. So I usually dip my brushes in here to kind of take some of the paint off between uses. This way I'm not buying new brushes every custom, because that's kind of dumb when you can just clean them. And just make sure they're nice and then for if I have to actually use thinner, I have a bigger bottle somewhere else. But this is like a mostly empty little pot, so it works good for that. This pot doesn't want to... There we go. The crusted over paint on that is a little thick. I'm going to use the black. Okay, so I'll just wipe that brush off. And my paint stick. Should be all done with the black. This goes in the thinner jar. If the thinner gets real bad, I can just dump it and pour in a little bit of fresh stuff. That's more of a if it stops cleaning it type of thing. So, these brushes are clean. Got soaked up a little bit of that extra paint there. I'll take this. Much better. Maybe I'll take a little bit of chrome, go over the edges of the mirrors, clean up my headlight edges, the toothpick, and then I just need a little bit might even use the toothpick to apply a little bit of paint right there. Clean. That looks perfect for the Ford emblem. Wipe that off. And then I'll take the toothpick. I'll use the toothpick to apply that little smudge of paint for the Ford blue. Because I've seen some people do that for very fine details. Because you don't get the deflection of a brush. Gotta keep applying it though, otherwise your tip dries out. Oh, I got too much down there. That I didn't want to do. Hopefully I can just blot that out without taking the black paint with it, but no, I might have just screwed up the whole front end. So just need a teeniest dab. I'm going to call that good enough. I'm going to let that dry, I guess, and then I guess I'll touch it up. So we'll clean that up a little. There's see if it's bad enough I need to repaint the grill. Because this kind of gets covered by the brush push bar, I guess. It's not bad at all. It's really not that visible behind it. So I guess all that's left to do is to carefully put the car together.